It's time for Where You Live with Gene and Tony, the show that's all about owning, buying, selling, renting, and association management. If it involves a home, we'll talk about it. Here's your chance to get your homeowner questions answered. From the Concierge Landscape Studios, here's Gene and Tony.
Needed the shelter of someone's arms, and there you were. Needed someone to understand.
Welcome back to Hour 2 of Where You Live with Gene and Tony. I'm Gene Sullivan.
And I'm Tony Crockett.
And we have covered, let's see, in the first hour, we've covered someone testing dog poop. We've talked about the real estate market in the Twin Cities. Mm-hmm. And we also talked about credit card information being given out inadvertently by your HOA. Mm-hmm. I guess there's not a topic we won't cover on this show. And we've got a number more here to cover here today. We'd love to hear from you folks as well. Tony, the number for folks to call?
Call us, 651-289-4488, 651-289-4488, or email Gene at gene@ncmgi.com.
And the topics in the news stories we're going to be covering here in the second hour. Next, we're going to be talking about a massive flood damage that took place at a high-rise condominium association in Seattle. We're going to talk about what it did as a result to a number of homeowners, but we're going to talk a little bit about what you can do or what you need to know about insurance to be prepared. Next, we're going to be talking about later on in the show, there is a gentleman who is an association president, and we are asking the question, is he a tyrant or is he a true reformer and victim of discrimination and hate? We're going to talk about a guy who is a very colorful fellow and kind of directing a lot of attention to himself as a board president. We're going to share with you some of the things that's going on. We'd love to hear from you and whether or not you think he's a tyrant or someone who is a true reformer. And then we're going to also talk about homeowner associations now are always looking for ways to try and save money on their budget. And one thing that's been happening in greater numbers now over the last few years is homeowner associations are making money with business ideas and creating thousands of dollars in monthly income into their budget. Is this a good idea, or are there unintended consequences? We're going to talk about that in a little bit. But, Tony, let's first begin here with this next news story, and this is coming from Seattle, Washington. In Seattle, there is what's called the Mosler Lofts, and they are dealing with severe property damage, a huge insurance claim, because a homeowner who lived on the 7th floor turned on her shower late one night and then fell asleep before ever going in. I've got to ask the question, how do you do that?
Well,
how do you turn on the shower and then just forget about it?
I have my ideas about that, Gene.
Yeah.
Usually there's alcohol involved in situations like that. Now, I might be slanted that way, but I when I was managing an apartment community, we had a fire in an apartment, and that was what happened. They turned a pot on the stove. It was a group of adults partying, and before
the word
anyone
adults could be questionable, I guess.
Yeah. Well, yeah, we're not talking about maturity level. We're talking about chronological age. And they had been drinking and partying, and they completely forgot, and they all passed out. And the heat from the stove set the hood above it on fire, and it was devastating. So okay. I have to say that 9 times out of 10, you will find out
that alcohol
was involved.
You know, my mind hadn't gone there when I read this story.
Well, I've got a twisted mind that way.
If I'm going to use the shower, I'm turning it on. I step in.
Mm-hmm.
I don't turn it on, and but yes.
And then go lie down and rest your eyes.
Yes, because it's too strenuous.
Yeah.
But anyway, this is what happened. The woman's on the 7th floor. She turns on the shower. She goes to sleep. A little bit later, all of a sudden, homeowners are in disarray because all the units down below have hundreds, and I mean hundreds and hundreds of gallons of water
Wow.
pouring into each of those units.
Wow.
And, and so I guess they said it went down 3 floors. So, good.
Jeez.
So I guess it didn't go
It
all
didn't
the way
go
down.
all the way down to the first floor. There has to have been another issue here. Something was plugging up the tub. Otherwise, wouldn't the shower water just go right down the tub drain?
Yes,
Yeah.
I suppose. I think you're right.
I think a couple of things had to go wrong here.
Yeah, or if she's in a state of drunkenness, yes, I suppose the shower head gets. She thinks she's in the stall and moves the shower head over, and is watering the floor. But who knows what happened? But it did all kinds of damage. And so the people in the homeowners association, of course, are understandably concerned. About a dozen people had to move out because their units were destroyed by all the water.
Wow.
And the insurance policy for the homeowners association is now supposed to cover what looks like hundreds of thousands of dollars in damage. If 12 units are damaged here, this could easily go up to $1 million easy without batting an eye.
Yep.
The owner of the loft, of course, where the bathtub overflowed, is going to be charged with the $10,000 insurance deductible, and that is as it should be. But now homeowners in the association are wondering if they're going to be forced to pay more in homeowner association dues because of this one incident, and they're worried about their property values going down. Because of this incident. What do you think about this, Tom?
Well, I have to say, Gene, this is a very real issue. When you share space, and especially share stacked space, in other words, you live above someone and or below someone, things like this happen, and they happen with some regularity. Sometimes usually it's not as horrific as this because it may be a dripping supply line behind a toilet. And usually these things are slow and they're caught before they do hundreds of $1,000s worth of damage. But this can happen when you share space with other people. It's also common that insurance deductibles are as high as $10,000. Some are even more. And it's common for the association to assess that deductible to the home where the incident originated, right?
Oh, yes, it is. For our listeners, too, if you're new to a homeowners association, one of the things that you'll find is that you'll generally have 2 insurance policies that deal with your home at that association. The one is generally the what is called the master policy, which is something that all homeowners pay into, and that is what is being used. Yeah. In this case, for the initial damage. But then there is what's called an HO6 policy, and that covers other types of coverage. Tony, tell our listeners a little bit about that.
Each owner needs to have an HO6 policy on their unit because that will cover your personal belongings. It will cover whatever you personally own of the unit. Often you'll see governing documents say that the homeowner owns from the sheetrock in a condominium and from the plywood flooring up. So you own everything inside the box is how they tell us in real estate school. And you need to insure that. So you may be responsible for cabinetry and plumbing fixtures and probably certainly carpet and window treatments. You have to have coverage for those things in case something goes wrong. Because the homeowners association is not going to cover those things.
Yeah. And a lot of people, one of the first things that people ask about this is, why should my insurance have to pay for this? This wasn't my fault at all. But one of the things you need to realize when it comes to insurance, the insurance company does not pay based on fault. They based upon how the language was written in the policy on where primary coverage is to take place first.
So is this realistic that these homeowners are concerned that their assessment will go up, Gene, or that their property values will go down?
The idea of the property values going down, I don't see that at all. I really don't. Do you, Tony? I mean,
I don't.
To me, one experience of damage and then that getting fixed or repaired. No, I don't know how that's going to affect the market.
Yeah, I agree. If as long as things are corrected and repaired, it should not affect values.
Yeah. Concerning, could they pay a more in homeowner dues because of that? Generally speaking, because of one claim, probably not. However, the way the market has been over the last few years, there are fewer and fewer insurance companies that want to continue in and stay insuring associations. So they may find that an insurance company may be pulling coverage at the end of a policy period just because they don't want to be in that market. There's some other things about this story, though, too, that I think we ought to cover for our listeners, Tony. But I see that we are coming up to a break here. Let's take a quick break right now. When we come back, we're going to talk more about what happened in Seattle at the Mosler Lofts with this massive flood damage, and what are some things you need to know about homeowners insurance when something happens like this at your homeowners association. We'll be back after these messages. You're listening to Where You Live with Gene and Tony on AM 1280, The Patriot.